For all who come to this happy place, welcome. The Disney parks are well known as the most magical places on Earth, but due to recent choices made by Disney executives, the magic is struggling a bit. In summer of 2020, Bob Chapek, the former CEO of Disney, introduced Disney Genie at D23, their exposition convention. This system would replace FastPass Plus at Disney World, which was a free system designed for guests to skip the line through virtual queues and reservation systems. Now, Disney Genie creates an itinerary and day plan based on guest preferences, along with a new FastPass system, Genie Plus, which I'll be focusing on today. And it is fraught with difficulties, malfunctions, and guest dissatisfaction. The introduction of the Genie Plus system in the North American Disney parks is a failure, which makes the vacation experience less enjoyable. And because this is a YouTube video, I have curated my arguments into an internet-friendly numbered list. But before we jump into why I'm right, it is important to understand where the fans of Genie Plus are coming from. Many people within the Disney company believe that Genie Plus has been a great success for both guests and their bottom line. First of all, it transitions a slow, clunky system to the 21st century with everything being done on phones and interactive wristbands, which are the Magic Bands. And it allows for a much smoother experience than having to physically walk over to an attraction to check wait times and then receive a paper fast pass. But the customer service department for the parks tripled in size with the introduction of FastPass Plus, which was the digital version of the original FastPass system, and it just continued with Disney Genie, so that didn't get any better. Next, they say that guests get to skip the line more, which makes the experience more fun. This is true, since if the system made net wait times longer, then it would be a complete failure. For guests who use Lightning Lanes, the new FastPass system part of Genie Plus, you barely ever wait longer than 10 to 15 minutes for your ride, which is nice. But even though Genie Plus allows for guests to skip the lines, once those rides reach maximum capacity, that line skipping comes at the detriment of standby guests. So here's this graph from Defunctland. It was a big inspiration for this video. Thank you, Mr. Perjurer. The guests closer to the right utilized lightning lanes to accomplish their goal, while the guests closer to the left were stuck in extremely long lines. The experience of educated guests that are trained to use Genie Plus have a much better experience than guests who are unaware of the system or those who do know about the system but are confused about how to utilize it. This creates a class system in the Disney parks, which is inherently not magical. Besides, Disney still deems Genie Plus a success, but not for the reasons that originally set Disney apart from their themed entertainment company competitors' guest experience. Their success is found in the form of highly inflated profits. During a quarterly earnings report from Bob Chapek, the CEO at the time, Disney reported much higher profits due to the increase in average per capita ticket revenue was due to attendance mix and the introduction of Genie Plus and a Lightning Lane. This essentially means that Genie Plus is here to stay, since Disney has no incentive to remove it. This could be beneficial, since Disney then has enough money to improve the parks by paying their cast members more, increasing maintenance on rides with broken features such as Rise of the Resistance's cannons or the Matterhorn's rickety, outdated ride system, when renovating the old-fashioned Tomorrowland and bringing back the People Mover at Disneyland. But when profits come at the expense of guest experience, it makes them less likely and then less financially able to return, since they feel taken advantage of by Disney. Even though Genie Plus may look successful in checkbooks cannot paint a realistic picture of guest experiences. Number 1. Disney Genie creates a worse guest experience than before because it strips formerly free benefits from guests and locks it behind a paywall. It may seem logical that a perk such as skipping the line should be a paid benefit, since it makes sense that a guest needs to pay to receive a service, In addition, some people say like Disney does not force you to pay Genie Plus, so guests can save money and still have a magical experience. However, this line of reasoning is illogical, and it starts with the history of the Fast Pass. In the late 1990s, the Fast Pass was introduced as a virtual queue system where guests can walk up to an attraction and make a choice to get into the standby queue or take a paper Fast Pass, which gave you an hour window sometime later in the day to get into the Fast Pass line, which gave you an extreme priority to skip the line. Phase 1 was a standard operating procedure with a 4-to-1 ratio. If there was a backup in the Fast Pass line, cast members would go to Phase 2, which was a 20-to-1 ratio, and if the backup was significant enough, Phase 3 would be initiated, which was for every one standby guest, 100 Fast Pass guests were let through. This was infuriating to guests waiting in the standby queue, which during these phases would almost completely stop. So, you could only hold one Fast Pass at a time, and you could redeem the Fast Pass in the hour it lists on the slip. Since guests virtually waited in line without having to actually stand in the same spot for multiple hours, it allowed guests to wander the park and enter the standby line for other attractions. This takes advantage of another feature of theme park operations: negative wait times. This meant that rides that were not operating at capacity would not have increased wait times up to a certain point, since there were empty seats in rides with negative wait times. This system also allowed for guests to spend more time and money in shops, making Disney more money, so it made sense for it to be free. Also, many within the company, including Laval, the creator of the Fast Pass, felt that the system should be free and available to all visitors, as to not create different classes of park guests, citing Walt Disney, who was known to wait in the park's lines with his guests. Fast Pass was free because it made the entire park run smoother, along with making guests happier by being able to experience more attractions. When Walt Disney created Disneyland in 1955, he wanted to make sure that all guests had an equally magical experience, since class systems were reflective of an imperfect society, and Disneyland was made to be perfect. Number 2, Genie Plus is entirely necessary if you want to get on all the rides in one day. So according to the Orange County Register, average wait times increased 20% from 2019 to 2022 at Disneyland and Disneyland California Adventure, according to data collected by WDW Stats. Therefore, guests who wanted to ride all of the most popular rides have two options: buy Genie Plus or visit an additional day, which means they have to pay for parking, hotels, food, along with another day's worth of tickets. Since most guests want to experience the best rides that Disney has to offer, there is a low chance that they only go for one day and do not buy Genie Plus. This makes an already expensive vacation, where the cheapest tickets no longer go under $100, even more prohibitive, which makes experience for guests more stressful and less relaxing, since the more money people spend on something makes them more desperate to have an exciting vacation, which in turn makes them more stressed out, making them want to get their money's worth. That is, if people can even afford to go anymore. According to the findings of Time to Play, an astounding 92.6% of survey respondents agreed that the cost of a Disney World vacation was out of reach for an average household. This follows the trends of corporate greed in America. Recently, businesses have begun favoring wealthier customers, since even though there are less of them, they will overcompensate and supply companies like Disney with more profits than catering to the masses of middle-class customers. It is a big tone shift, sorry about that. This problem has become so widespread that it has reached Congress, where Senator Sanders from Vermont spoke against corporations working against Americans instead of for them. The rich get richer, the middle class shrinks. Not enough, not enough. The very rich seem to want more and more and more. By giving perks to richer guests, it makes the less wealthy guests feel less valued, and that the Disney magic is only for those with deeper pockets. Wealthier guests naturally are more able to visit the Disney parks, so their more frequent trips are also smoother and more enjoyable than a middle-class family going for a once-in-a-lifetime trip without the money or time to learn how to utilize Genie Plus. Everybody who uses Lightning Lane has to cut in front of people who are in the standby line. This severely clogs up wait times, especially for already popular rides such as Rise of the Resistance or Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which have paid Lightning Lanes, so it is even more necessary to pay for Lightning Lanes. This scenario makes the guest experience worse for both people who did buy Genie Plus and those who did not. For Genie Plus guests, they have to pay more for a formerly free service, and for guests who did not, they have to wait in a much longer line than before, watching richer guests skip the line while they experience fewer attractions. Also, guests who bought Disney Genie Plus do not have the opportunity to always use Lightning Lanes since there are limited amounts that the Disney Genie is allowed to distribute. So they also have to suffer through the much higher wait times in the standby queue for rides they were not fortunate enough to get a Lightning Lane for. Alright, number 3. Not only is Genie Plus a necessary cost, but how the system works creates a guest experience of poorer quality than its predecessors. In order to understand why it creates a worse experience, it is important to understand how it works. First, you reserve your park tickets since you can't buy tickets at the day of entry. And then, at 7 a.m. on your park day, you can choose one Lightning Lane that is part of the Genie Plus system, and up to 2 paid Lightning Lanes that are not included as part of Genie Plus, such as Rise of the Resistance in Hollywood Studios and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in the Magic Kingdom. In the Disneyland Resort, however, you need to be inside park gates to begin redeeming Lightning Lanes. After that, you can gain access to subsequent Lightning Lanes by redeeming either your previous Lightning Lane or by waiting 2 hours since you last received one. For Lightning Lanes not included in Genie Plus, you have to pay $10 or $20 per person per ride, depending on the ride, and you do not have to wait for a normal Genie Plus Lightning Lane to be available. You are limited to 2 paid Lightning Lanes per day, but with new attractions such as Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind in Epcot, and Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway in Disneyland, there are no standby lines. Instead, Disney opted for either paid Lightning Lanes or with a virtual queue, where at 7 a.m. in either resort you can try to enter a boarding group from 7 to 1, where it gives you your return time. There is also a second wave released at 1 p.m. If a normal guest wants to experience the brand new attraction, they need to be quick, lucky, or rich. So, to experience an attraction, you have 4 simple choices: standby, Genie Plus, individual Lightning Lanes, or virtual queue. This environment that Disney Genie creates in the park is bad for every type of consumer. For a system with such a steep learning curve, it would be expected that the experienced guests with all the knowledge of Genie Plus and how to take advantage of it would have a much smoother experience than a guest who has to wait in much longer lines. But this disparity is actually much smaller than expected. So, as I mentioned previously, Genie Plus is entirely either on your phone or your Magic Band, but you can only schedule Lightning Lanes on your phone. So, whenever you want to make a fast pass, you have to go on your phone, check wait times, check redeeming times, and so you, in essence, gotta pull over to the side of the sidewalk, or, just stop in the middle of a sidewalk and have, groups walk all around you because you're oblivious, and you have to spend, 10 minutes figuring out where you want to go and when you're gonna go. And that time could be spent, better looking at the castle, or just not at your phone screen, because, your phone is something that you can have anywhere in the world, and Disneyland is only found in California. People hate waiting in lines, especially at Disney World, so Genie Plus was designed to make guests wait in less lines, making their experience more enjoyable. After its introduction, guest experience worsened dramatically due to how it revoked previous perks, how it forces you into using it, and how complex and difficult it is to use. Although it does save time in lines when you use a lightning lane, the system does more harm than good, since the Disney parks should be made for you and me, and not for the rich. For the time being, Genie Plus is necessary for a good Disney vacation, but it should be removed with due haste to return more magic to the Disney parks. Thank you.